1991 closed-door meeting of fellow internationalists, billionaire and former CFR chairman David Rockefeller praised his media allies. But his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government.
Redirecting the bright lights of publicity is not the media's only contribution toward such a plan.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
Here to drive performance. And I believe it will also be said of this age, the first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, perhaps one even greater than at the time of the Industrial Revolution, a new world order was created. When my predecessors were speaking to this event a century ago, the world order of the 19th century they were describing was defined mainly by the balance of military power, and they saw European empires dividing the world between them. From the time of 1945, when my predecessors of the post-war years spoke to you, the world order was simply defined by the high-stakes standoff that characterized the Cold War years. These were orders that were ultimately reflected by political weight and military strength. But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order, and they're doing so principally because of their economic strength and potential. And while military and political power retain their status and always will, all these new challenges are bringing together about the biggest restructuring we have ever seen, not just of the global economy, but of the global order as a whole. And 200 years ago, a famous British Foreign Secretary said that the new world had been called into existence to redress the balance of the old. In 1990, another old world ended, dominated by the Cold War, and people talked then, in 1990, of a new world order. What they actually meant then was a new political order. And what was not foreseen then, but is obvious now from everything that we see and do, what we experience in every day of our life, is the sheer scale and speed and scope of globalization. And it's only now that we can begin to understand that the world order that globalization brings and what it's going to look like, it's driven forward now not just by the balance of military strength, the Cold War times, or ordinary political power. It's being driven forward by a seismic shift in economic power that we see around us. But what does the new world order mean for countries like ours who are looking to succeed? I suggest that the countries that are going to succeed are those that combine flexibility, free trade, open markets, with proper stewardship of the environment and investment in education, infrastructure and innovation. And the question for us is how we meet and master all these challenges to ensure that Britain enhances its competitiveness in the process and realises what I believe is our destiny of success in this new world order. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
You also mentioned in here an encounter with Saddam Hussein in Iraq, in Baghdad. Was there anything in that meeting some 20 years ago that would have led you to believe that he'd be playing the role he is today?
I don't think so, but in the light of what's happened, it certainly makes it all the more interesting. I did it actually at the request of Henry Kissinger, who was then Secretary of State. I was going anyway to that part of the world, and Chase had business with the leading commercial bank in Iraq, and so I was going for that. And he asked me if I would also go to see him to say that he would like to establish closer touch with the regime. He felt that it was important that our two countries communicated more effectively. I did see him, and he was pretty cold, and he said the only way we could hope to establish closer relations would be if we would discontinue our support for Israel. Well, it was not likely that that was going to happen.
Right.
So it was not a terribly productive meeting, although in the hindsight it was certainly an interesting one.
A special televised meeting of the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations provides a window to the real story. The speaker, Vice President Dick Cheney, takes a question from David Rockefeller.
Vice President, I just enjoyed so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americas, subject that has been of great concern to me for many years, and particularly recently, and I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
Rockefeller's role in the drive for an FTAA was a lot more central than he portrays. Rockefeller cultivated Latin American leaders who could be counted on to support such a proposal. Both the 1994 Miami Summit and the FTAA proposal were conceived and nurtured by a Rockefeller-created network. Prominent among the organizations sponsoring the Miami event were the Council of the Americas, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller, the Americas Society, chairman David Rockefeller, the Forum of the Americas, founder David Rockefeller, the Institute for International Economics, financial backer and board member David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller. Rockefeller's influence also extends to the current administration. He was chairman emeritus of the CFR when Vice President Dick Cheney once served as a director, a relationship that Cheney concealed during his congressional career.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
The grid. A digital frontier. I tried to picture clusters of information as they moved through the computer. What did they look like? Ships, motorcycles? Were the circuits like freeways? I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see. And then, one day, I got in.
The
people that are behind this treaty want that world government.
Eventually controlling the market.
Eventually controlling all of us.
Sure.
Yes.
World government.
That's the value set of John Kerry, Barack Obama, and their allies in Europe.
Show some of the pictures of the Boston police, okay? Look at this. This country is becoming a police state, and it is very troubling to me.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
I want to make it very clear in the beginning, I'm not anti-government. I don't believe in terrorism. Unfortunately, there are a few key people in key positions who have made a difference, a big difference, in what's happening in America today. I retired from the FBI in March 1979. At that time, I was in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I had more than 700 personnel under my command. My first major, and credibility, believe me. Now, if you read the internet, you may not think so, because there are some heavy-duty FBI informants out there like Stu Webb and Barbara Hartwell, who are MKUltra mind control victims, CIA mind control victims, who are making all kinds of disparaging remarks about me. But I don't want to deal with those people, because if you read their material, you'll see that it's designed to discredit people like me, former State Senator John DeCamp, and other leaders who are trying our best to expose what's happening in America today, and actually around the world. Let's go back to 1776, May the 1st. Adam Weishaupt was commissioned by the Rothschild family to set up the goals to control and take over the world with a one world government. Adam Weishaupt came up with 25 goals. Among these goals were control the press, corrupt the youth through sex and drugs, elect our own people meaning the Illuminati, to key positions in all levels of the government, city, county, state, and federal. And it goes on. The final goal was to take over the world, the one world government. When I retired, I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea about the Illuminati. I had no idea about Adam Weishaupt. October 25, 1980, I, through a series of circumstances, I don't have time to go into the details now, obtained a signed confession from one Helena Stokely. Helena told me that Dr. McDonald did not commit those crimes, that they were committed by her satanic cult group. And I said to myself, what's this all about? I don't know anything about Satanism. I read about it in the Bible, of course, and that's about it. Now, I'm telling you a little bit about the McDonald case, because that's what woke me up as to what was going on. It was after that I started researching and went back and found out about the Illuminati. Illuminati/Satanism. The MKUltra program, CIA mind control program, was investigated by Congress in 1987. Congress said, CIA, you got to quit doing that. That's you're bad boys. And they said, we will quit. Don't kid yourself. It's very active today. Americans, for the most part, are oblivious to what's really going on behind the scenes. Why are these congressmen voting on bills like the Patriot Act, which takes away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties, in the best interests of, quote, protection for our country and protection from the terrorists. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There are people in our government, a rogue outfit, whatever, I'm not sure, who are actually behind these terrorist acts. And the reason they're behind the terrorist acts is so they can pass bills like the Patriot Act. Our military reportedly have been using microchips to keep track of their soldiers. We need to wake up America. But we need to wake up an apathetic, sleeping society that is active in America today. And this not only ties into MK Ultra, CIA, it ties into Satanism. The satanic cults operate secretly. The satanic cults are, along with our covert criminal enterprise within the government, a serious threat to our society. And I thank you very much.
The Patriot Act, Homeland Security, the Military Tribunals Act, and other legislations are all completely and entirely designed to destroy your civil liberties and limit your ability to fight back against what is coming. The last thing the men behind the curtain want is a conscious, informed public capable of critical thinking, which is why a continually fraudulent zeitgeist is output via religion, the mass media, and the educational system. They seek to keep you in a distracted, naive bubble. And they are doing a damn good job of it. Divide and conquer is the motto. And as long as people continue to see themselves as separate from everything else, they lend themselves to being completely enslaved. The men behind the curtain know this, and they also know that if people ever realize the truth of their relationship to nature and the truth of their personal power, the entire manufactured zeitgeist they prey upon will collapse like a house of cards.
Aldous Huxley, the author of A Brave New World, he said in an interview back in 1958 that the social engineers of the future, they will figure out a way to enslave us by tricking us and conditioning all of us into thinking that we are actually free. This was also well thought out and researched by the father of propaganda, Edward Bernays, who in his 1928 book, Propaganda, Bernays wrote, "If we understand the mechanisms and motives of the group mind, it is now possible
to control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it."
He called it the engineering of consent and proposed that
those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country.
So are we living in an Orwellian nightmare that was prophesied by the likes of George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, and Edward Bernays? Well, I did some research and I put together some video clips that shows how the globalist mind control has been present in our everyday lives, our entire lives, because the future is now.
If you want to preserve your power indefinitely, you have to get the consent of the ruled. And this they will do, partly by drugs, as I foresaw in Brave New World, partly by these new techniques of propaganda. They will do it by bypassing the sort of rational side of man and appealing to his subconscious and his deeper emotions and his physiology even, and so making him actually love his slavery. I mean, I think this is the danger, that actually people may be in some ways happy under the new regime, but they will be happy in a situation where they oughtn't to be happy.
This is The Big Picture, an official television report to the nation from the United States Army.
Yes, in modern warfare, our military leaders are finding that words and ideas are highly effective weapons. Here, recruits with specialized backgrounds were taught the nature, methods, and techniques of propaganda and its dissemination. Radio presents these facts in any number of ways. Perhaps its most rewarding form of expression is news. For news is ready-made propaganda, and to an enemy, Denied access to outside information, it's as welcome as food and water. Radio's principal advantage is that it can reach remote areas and reach them quickly. So that one program can be repeated and thereby reach a larger audience, it is often recorded on discs or on tape. The same show can be rebroadcast at convenient times in different areas.
Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices.
Public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
My team and my specialties, information operations and the psychological arm of things, we are trained to deceive if we have to.
If you found out that your public affairs team that was showing you around actually had just completed a 40-hour course in psychological operations and was trained in psyops and in military deception, you start to question, hey, is that an appropriate use of that resource?
You shouldn't trust me. In fact, by my actually participating in that, I will taint the news.
They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
Go read a book by the father of modern advertising, Edward Bernays, where he calls you a dumb slave and admits they run your whole life. I've read both his major books. One of them's called Propaganda. Edward Bernays.
Psychological warfare operations went into high gear. Our propaganda was beginning to pay off.
There's a global crime syndicate that controls NATO and the major Western governments, and it is using Al-Qaeda to overthrow secular governments.
I also can't see sending my son to fight with Islamic rebels against Christians. I also can't see my son going to fight on the same side as Al-Qaeda.
The people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Well, pancaking almost like a precision implosion.
Everybody get away from the tower. You got another tower that just came down 1013. Where exactly are you, King?
Millions of people are sick and tired of the endless wars, the poverty that is coming, the attacks of our civil liberties.
I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Conspiracies, yes. If I believe it, there's nothing theory about it.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Meantime, there are questions multiplying today about the mysterious death of award-winning journalist Michael Hastings.
We are also requesting that your team of advisors include a senior officer who is thoroughly experienced in psychological operations.
Psychological warfare was established as a special staff agency. This move had far-reaching results.
You consider yourself a Marxist?
Oh, I would very definitely say that I am a Marxist. That is correct.
This American citizen, Obama, depends on your next decision.
What if the whole purpose of government was to negate freedom? What if freedom was a myth? What if the Constitution meant nothing to the government? What if everything the government has or owns or controls has been stolen?
It's what we're doing here, and let's not kid about it. We're building a domestic army, and we're shrinking the military because the government is afraid of its own citizens.
This is what we have to look forward to all over the place. Look how quick, within a matter of days, they were able to go into a martial law status here in Ferguson. They had this entire bridge, this road blocked off.
You on the parking lot. This is the St. Louis County Police Department. Disperse now.
They coming to flank. Joe Biggs got shot with a rubber bullet. Now I'm running down the street. Man, quit shooting at me! Quit shooting at me!
I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
all of the things we talked about when I was, your on-air co-worker, all those things have happened. And people don't either care or they didn't listen or whatever. It doesn't matter. Other things that we talked about and other things that we're now seeing are going to happen. The dollar is not going to last. So what does the world look like? We have two ways to go. We can either tear each other apart, or we can see that world that Amazon was talking about last night on 60 Minutes, where literally the sky is the limit. Everything you know is about to change.
When you look at the state of the economy, Obamacare, the disaster, the rise in the ever-growing government, deficits, debt, doubling of the people on welfare, what do you think in the privacy? I know you spend a lot of time reading and you now have become a student of history. What do you think privately is going to happen to this country?
I think that we are
in trouble.
Yeah, and I think that we are in a situation that we will either rise to the occasion and be our best selves. I saw something that happened over the weekend, Sean, a poll that came out. I know you must have talked about it today. 70% of Americans don't trust each other. They think only 30% of this country you can trust. If that remains true, will we then become Europe?
We see signs that with the noblest of intentions, the Obama administration is in a kind of headlong retreat from the kind of global engagement that, in our view, offers the best hope for peace. Quick final thought from you, because you say openly in your essay that you're reserving judgment on all of this as we learn more over the next several weeks. But one of the things that you talk about in a broader perspective is global powers trying to rearrange themselves into a new global world order.
What we're seeing is a kind of a concerted pushback by these three countries. I think we have to watch it carefully to see whether, in fact, this is the opening of a new moment in international history.
Very interesting.
Whether, in fact, this is the opening of a new moment in international history.
New mystery surrounding One World Trade Center. For about a year, New Yorkers have reported hearing an eerie sound coming from the newly constructed building. They call it haunting, and it's got a lot of people talking. Rick Leventhal joins us now. So, Rick, you went down there. You did some investigative work. What did you learn?
Well, there's clearly a noise. It's not clear exactly where it's coming from. It can create a sound that some are calling eerie, haunting, even moaning. The whistling was first reported by the Tribeca citizen on the day after Thanksgiving. A man who lives a couple blocks from the almost completed One World Trade Tower wrote a local paper and said he first heard the sound during Hurricane Sandy last year and assumed it would be eliminated when the building's framework was finished and the windows installed. Well, then last week in the middle of the night, the neighbor says the tower began whistling again with a slightly different two-toned cry, calling it unmistakable and very chilling. So here it is, and you can judge for yourself.
Like, one of them is the mechanical mismatch between humans and electronics, right? So electronics are boxy and rigid, humans are curvy and soft. That's a mechanical mismatch problem. Well, a researcher at the University of Illinois, his name is Dr. Rogers, what he did is he founded a company and they started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication. Now, it may be true that 10 to 20-year-olds don't want to wear a watch on their wrist, but you can be sure that they'll be far more interested in wearing an electronic tattoo, if only to piss off their parents. That's something that you wear, but you could also imagine including authentication in just your daily habits. So I take a vitamin every morning. What if I could take vitamin authentication?
What?
Vitamin authentication. Look, I have one right here. Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So this...
You guys see it?
This pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. And they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. and it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true. Okay?
Okay, but...
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in. First superpower. Like, I want that.
This is FDA cleared?
So here's the thing. This is not science fiction. This pill was actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA.
Does Google now know everything I do and everywhere I go? Because, let's face it,
If you have never heard of Bitcoin, you are probably not alone, but the online currency is gaining popularity around the world, and now in eastern Kentucky. WIMT's Brittany Nada looked into the cyber money to try and answer some questions about how it works.
City commissioners in Vico recently passed a measure to pay its police chief in Bitcoin. It may be a forward-thinking movement, but many of you probably do not understand how it works.
Bitcoin is a new currency traded against the dollar, yen, euro, and every other currency around the world.
Israel is ready for historic peace, and it's a peace based on 2 states for 2 peoples. It's a peace that Israel can and must be able to defend itself by itself with our own forces against any foreseeable threat.
In the days and weeks ahead, we will consult very closely and continually with our Israeli friends in order to bring about a comprehensive agreement that can withstand everybody's test.
FBI is rolling out a $1 billion facial recognition system. This high-tech program has been undergoing testing since February. It compiles mug shots, iris scans, and more, and is finally said to be ready for launch.
You know, the FBI is now revealing its next generation, if you will, effort to weed out the bad guys. As you mentioned, $1 billion. They've put it to the test so far in several states since February. Now, the system works in 2 ways. It can compare an image to the FBI's massive database of mugshots to pinpoint criminals. It can also track suspects in surveillance footage by honing in on their faces in a crowd. There are those opposed to the idea, though, such as Democratic Senator Al Franken, who suggests the database raises serious privacy issues. Several public advocates are also wary of the project, fearing it will eventually extend beyond criminals to include images of the innocent. It is nationally implemented by the year 2014, John. So
wow, fascinating.
They may be looking at you.
Let's hope not.
A new crime-fighting tool is so big, some might call it a tank.
Hey, I think they are. Now, it's really called an MRAP. I checked on that. And tonight, these massive military vehicles are in the hands of 4 mid-state police agencies.
A handful of police departments are now getting them free of charge to protect their officers. Hendersonville SWAT team already has 2 Humvees. The problem is they're not armored. The MRAP gives them that much-needed protection.
We plan to paint it black, just the same as our other tactical vehicles, and put police markings on it, and that's probably all we're going to do.
Sir, I want to talk to you. Do not arrest me.
Go right there. He's under arrest. Stay right there. Back up, back up.
Hey guys, if you cross this line, you'll be under arrest, so don't do it.
Amy, we're going to get you out of here very soon. Yes, we have evidence.
This was, Amy, a reporter being arrested by police who were dressed like stormtroopers out of a Steven Spielberg movie. What was your experience? What were your thoughts? And And how do you think that we got here from 20, 30 years ago when this kind of thing was pretty much unheard of?
You know, you had these police officers going after thousands of peaceful protesters, eviscerating the encampments, tear gassing, pepper spraying, beating people in the streets. And this all has to be reimagined. I mean, police have to be challenged. There are many good cops who don't feel that that's their role.
Yeah,
and it's our job in the media to cover them.
I think so. And Matthew, I'm curious, in the minute we have left, at what point in time did America start militarizing our police and why?
Well, I don't think there's going to be anyone who can point to a specific minute, but I think a lot of it has to do with
the time the Dirty Harry movies.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we started waging this crazy war on drugs that encourages the militarization of police.
I came to paint a mural that depicted the elite banker cartel, known as the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Morgans, the ruling class elite few, the Wizards of Oz. They would be playing a board game of Monopoly on the backs of the working class. The symbol of the Freemason pyramid rises behind this group, and behind that is a polluted world of coal burning and nuclear reactors. I started noticing that the people were giving me some strange looks. Suddenly a car pulled up and some dudes got out. Some kids from across the street walked up and everybody's asking me, why am I painting this sign of the Illuminati in their neighborhood? And do I believe in Satan? I was feeling some serious heat and anger from them. I said I was creating this piece to inspire critical thought and spark conversation. I heard fucking American said, and fuck the Illuminati. They said my mural wouldn't last till the morning and I should just quit now. I continued to express my intent, but they were not trying to hear me. I felt that I was all alone, but I continued to paint when another larger group approached with older men and women, telling me to cross it out, and this is the symbol that has hunted their people down for over 1,000 years. So much passion, and they were very versed in the taboo subject of a secret government, banking cartel, and that they didn't quite get me. I explained my mural and how these elite few were living easy lives on the backs of the working class. I wasn't in promotion of these thieves. They said then write something on the wall to convince us that you mean what you say. I walked over and wrote, the New World Order is the enemy of humanity. They started talking and I couldn't understand. A few walked away, a few said okay, and some stayed and talked with me about our money system and how they see us Americans. It wasn't directed at me as much as it was shared. I had no idea this was going to be such an intense experience from the get-go and still running. The next day I painted the bankers in with the playing board and noticed people were becoming more curious. Some of the people from the day before were saying hello. A few said good job. My third day I got the working class holding up the game board painted in, and the people were smiling and saying how much they were enjoying its evolution. They were getting it. This was empowering, and it gave me fuel to work out the meticulous details. The whole adventure was very draining, but suddenly my energy was back. Come the fourth day there was a street fest going on, and the people were engaging with me with total knowledge of the subject matter of my mural. Older white men to young Muslim children were talking to me, explaining how us Americans spend beyond our means, and how we don't understand what our military does around the world. Our money is worth nearly half of theirs. For America to fall, all the world has to do is nothing, and an economic war can be waged and won. A lengthy conversation of post-9/11 America and foreign policy. My mind was blown. This experience transformed my whole understanding of the game. I finished my mural, and I drank a beer, smoked a joint, and conversed with the people. My dream to paint a mural that would rally people together and inspire conversation of things that matter was just realized, and it was a bit humbling and emotional. I feel very close to all the people I met at the Shoreditch District and Brick Lane. These people shared their lives and thoughts with me unfiltered. We are all Earth people.
are they? They are the ones in control. They are the ones that have been foretold. They lurk in the shadows, behind the curtain, keeping us in the dark, that you can be certain. They mold and shape our mind so that we may never shine. They wrote our history books so that we may never know where to look. They prey upon our apathy in a plot you can't untwist. Policing how you think and feel, they tighten an iron fist. They create our distractions so they may prepare for the coming attractions. All the world's a stage, we are trapped in this cage. They are the men who built America. They are the men who will destroy it. Power is their currency, their DNA. As they hide in plain sight, we wither away. They are the masters of deception, their media creating lies since its inception. Telling lies to your vision, it's called programming for a reason. They are behind the big charade. Blackmail, deceit, treason, their stock and trade. They are behind the ageless plot, knowing they will never be caught, unless we stir up the pot. Who are they? They are who you should never obey.